Hi, I'm Steven, and this is Erock, and today we are going to be gaming through time. So this is a new series where we are going to start at 1975 all the way through to, I think, 2021 is how far we're going to go, and we're going to tell you, for starters, right. Eventually we'll hit 2300 something, but no. We're going to tell you what our favorite game is that was published that year, and we'll also tell you what is currently BGG's highest rated game of the year as well. So in this video, we're going to cover 1975 through 1979. But before we get started, we wanted to just talk about a couple of games, highlight a few games from before 1975 that we think are worth a shout out. So Erock, I'll let you go ahead and get started. Why don't you run through your list?
Thank you, Steve. I also want to point out that I'm absolutely positive I didn't play every game from all of these years. So just putting it out there that these are our picks for that. And I'm sure you can comment in here and tell us what we missed, what was wrong in all these different years, because I'm sure we were wrong. Yeah. But to start it off, I do have a handful of honorable mentions. These were games pre-1975. And as a side note, I was actually surprised how many good games there were pre-1975 when I sorted that through BGG. I was like, wow, that's a lot of good games before that, because, we're in this hobby and we're like, oh, everything great is new, but there's a lot of good games before 1975. So anyway, we'll break into my four honorable mentions. My four honorable mentions, first of all, is Acquire. Acquire is a Sid Saxon game. It is a very good economic game in which you kind of draw random tiles of a grid and you try to put these hotel chains together to take up space. And sometimes one of them is so big and they get up against another one and it just kind of absorbs it and stuff. And it really messes with the stock prices of all this stuff. An excellent game, still in my collection, and we still play it every once in a while. Next up on my honor roll is Diplomacy. Diplomacy is one of those games that I'm sure you've probably heard about as the friend killer. I've actually played a lot of Diplomacy. Most of it probably online, but I have played a lot of games in person as well. I absolutely love Diplomacy. I think the walking around, talking to everybody, making deals, screwing people over, I think that's a really good time. I've always had a lot of fun with that. And yes, it is kind of a friend killer if you let that happen.
Diplomacy was on my list. We used to play this in high school a lot, where you submitted one order per day, so it left a lot of time for Diplomacy, and that's
the way to do it. I agree. Most of the time we would do 3 hours in the first sitting. So maybe 15 or 20 minutes per turn for 3 hours. And then we just stop. And then we'd go to the one turn a day after that. And I really love it. It's awesome. Especially in a school setting like that. You're right. Because you just through the halls and you're like, we got a thing, right? We got a thing, right? You're like, yeah, I got you. Don't worry about it, So Diplomacy, absolutely. Number 3 honorable mention is Crokinole. Crokinole is a very old game, basically, where you're flicking wooden discs towards kind of a target, and you score points. That's the incredibly simplistic way to look at that. We actually just got Crokinole as a Christmas gift from 2 of our best friends this year, so shout out Rob and Mickey. Also, that's in our collection. I didn't say so, but I still have a copy of Diplomacy. And 4th on my list is Risk. I played a ton of Risk when I was young. I was addicted to it. I didn't care that it took 3 weeks to play a game. I did not care. I loved the Risk. Back then, I was absolutely an Ameritrash player, and I just loved the chucking the dice. And of course, I still have Risk in my collection as well. So that's my Hall of Fame, my honorable mentions, as it were. I'm sure, Steve, you played Risk at some point.
Yeah, my grandmother would play Risk with us, and she had no idea. Awesome. She had no idea what she was doing, but boy, could she roll sixes, so she could win.
That's the worst kind of player. You're like, you have no idea what you're doing, and you're whooping my butt.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure you have some honorable mentions as well, Steve.
I do. I'll go through these real quick. The oldest one on my list, because we're talking 15th century here, is chess. So the modern version of chess is from, sometime in the 15th century, I think. And I play, this is the game that I have played the most in my life, probably number of times and amount of time spent. I don't play it as much anymore, but it is far and away the winner. And I bet if you were to say, what is the most played board game in history, I bet chess would be way off the top of the charts, right?
That's a good one, man. Yeah. I was actually president of the chess club in my high school, so
I have entered and won money in chess tournaments, so I guess that makes me a chess professional by some definitions.
Well, you're much better than I wasn't actually any good. I was just the president for political reasons. So, yeah.
Nice.
Going back to diplomacy.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So I got a couple of other old card games here. So we're talking early 1900s, which is when you'll find probably, not exactly sure, when the Texas Hold'em version of poker was invented.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think Texas Hold'em is a great, you've got sort of like a push your luck thing going on. You've got, the math going on, your probability and odds. You've got bluffing going on. It's just a great game. And I host a charity poker tournament every year that's at Texas Hold'em. All right. So I got to give a shout out there. Also, if you've heard me talk on, some of my my top 100 videos or my top plays or whatever, I'll talk about how I used to play Oh Hell as a kid. So Oh Hell is probably my favorite.
When we were kids. We played it with my grandparents all the time. So
yeah. That's from maybe around the 1930s. That's, I think, my favorite trick-taking game of all time. Then we've got Stratego from 1946, which, again, is not a game that I would really want to play a lot today, except with kids. I love playing this with my kids. So
I hear you. I actually I thought about this one, putting on my honorable mentions. I was like, I don't really want to play anymore, but I did play a ton of it when I was a kid. So
yeah,
props to your honorable mentions.
Yeah, I played a ton as a kid, and I play now still again because now I have kids. And then last one, just sneaking in here, just missing the deadline at 1974 is Connect 4, which again. Same thing, right? With Stratego, actually probably even more so. It's really not that great of a game. I wouldn't sit down with an adult and play this. But when I was a kid, man, did I think I was so smart figuring out how to, get 4 connections, 4 in a row. And today, playing it with my kids and them sort of, you can see the little wheels turning, them figuring out strategy, right? I had to give a shout out to Connect 4.
Excellent. Those are good choices. So I think we're off to a good start here. Now it's all downhill.
All right. Well, that was a fast forward from the beginning of time through to 1974. So we're going to slow down a little bit and let's go with 1975. Nice. All right. Erock, why don't you tell us what is your favorite game published in the year 1975?
Okay. So for 1975, my favorite game is Payday. We played the ton out of Payday when I was a kid. And honestly, I don't think it's really that great of a game. Looking back on it, you just roll a die to move through this calendar, and sometimes you'd make money and sometimes you'd lose money, and every once in a while you had a chance to get these huge deals, and if you landed on the right space later, you could cash them in for a ton of money, but you could take out a loan to get the deal, and the bills and everything were due at the end of the month, and you might have to take out a loan for all that. You just played a certain number of months that you decided beforehand, and whoever had the most money at the end of those months won the game. It's kind of like fun Monopoly almost. And we played a ton of it. It was just so much fun. The money in and out constantly. I mean, it was just everything. There's even a part where it was like poker, where everybody that wanted to play put some money in there and just rolled a die. Whoever had the highest die roll won the money. So I really, really loved Payday when I was a kid.
I take stuff to Goodwill every now and then, and when I do, I'll stop in and just see maybe they have a board game. And every now and then you'll find something interesting like Wits and Wagers or something like that. Well, one day I saw Payday there for $1.99. I'm like, okay.
Nice.
And I was a couple of years ago or whatever. I brought it home. I was like, well, maybe my kids will like it. Maybe they won't. If they don't, I'll just send it back to Goodwill and I'm out $2. Big deal, right? And they love it, right? I don't particularly like it, but I also don't mind it, right? There are kids games that are awful and I don't want to play. Yep. I don't mind playing Payday.
This is one of those I completely forgot about until I started researching for this list. And I had the same thought. I was like, maybe Jacoby would really like that because when I was a kid, it was just a ton of fun. So might be something that I'm looking for $2 here.
Yeah.
To see how that goes. How about you, Steve? What do you got?
Yeah, my pick for 1975 is also a game that I played as a kid and would love to find at Goodwill. I haven't played with my kids because I just don't have a copy. And this is Dungeon with an exclamation point. I'm going to see how many times I can get a title that has an exclamation point.
That's a different list. I have to do that later.
Yeah. So So if you look at Dungeon, it's just a basic dungeon crawler. It is a D&D product, right? So you've got all the characters and monsters and treasures that you would like to find and expect to find in D&D. So I think that's cool. And they're asymmetric, right? You play a character, it has some special ability. Each monster you fight, the scores, the numbers are different depending on which character you are. And it looks like, if you look at the back of the box, it looks like a roll and move game because there's a map and there's dice, but the dice are just for combat. You actually have a specific amount of movement you do each turn, so it's not as random as all that with roll and move. So, there are a million better dungeon crawlers out there probably than Dungeon, but for 1975 and for, when I was a kid, that was pretty good as a dungeon crawler. So yeah, that's why I picked it.
I never actually played that, but I have heard of it. So that's got to be a testament to how good it is.
I mean,
just from that long ago.
They might still publish it.
That's not entirely sure, possible.
But it might be. Yeah. All right.
That's awesome.
So I have the data here, but and I don't expect you to know this, but do you know what is the number one rated game on BGG from 1975?
No idea.
Well, you're going to find a bunch of war games when you're this old. So it is the Battle for Germany. So I had never heard of the Battle from Germany, but it sounds pretty interesting. So this is World War II, and it sounds like you play on the offense and the defense simultaneously. So if you're playing the Germans on the Western Front, you also play the Soviets on the Eastern Front. Is that right? And so you're on defense on the Eastern Front and you're on offense on the Western Front. And if you are playing the Allies on the Western Front, you're playing the Germans on the Eastern Front invading the Soviet Union. So yeah, you're simultaneously playing two opposite sides. And so sounds interesting.
I don't think I've ever heard of that in a game where you're like playing the opposite sides in the same game. I've played let me think, Friedrich is like maybe it's Maria where it's more like one person plays against two, but anyway, I'm getting way off topic here, but that sounds interesting. I'd like to play the different sides at the same time. That sounds cool.
Yeah, I think it it's weird. I think its description says it's a short game, only 3 hours or something, right? Because it's a war game, right? But it's not that long. I don't. Yeah. So anyway, awesome. There you go. 1975. All right. Are you ready to move on to 1976?
It's a whole year later.
All right, let's do it. Why don't you start us off again?
Excellent. For 1976, my favorite game is a game called Whosit. Whosit is a game where there's basically 20 different pictures of people. Vampire, cowboy, truck driver, whatever. Just actor, hero, things like that. And they have things like a mustache, a hat, not a hat, wearing a shirt, wearing a tie, things like that. And you draw these questions out of a deck of cards, and then you get to ask whoever you want to the question. So the question might be like, are you wearing a hat? And I probably should have said so everybody's identity is secret. So you draw a secret identity as one of these people. And then you just take turns like asking these questions. Are you wearing a hat? And if their answer is yes, you put the question in front of them to show they're wearing a hat. And this just kind of keeps going around and around with people asking questions and trying to figure out who everybody is. I had this really weird and cool thing where like when you made a guess to who everybody was, you would pass around this little plastic box and everybody would put either a chip in the yes or in the no. And then the person who guessed would open it up and find out, did I get them all right? Oh no, I missed one. And the game would go on until everybody got it right. And this is another one of these I didn't even think about for so long until we did the research for this, but I played a lot of this. And I think this is probably, in the weirdest way, my first social deduction game. Because it really is. Because not only do you have, like, the cowboy and the stuff, and you ask the questions, and they say yes or no, but you also have, like, the guy who always lies, the guy who always tells the truth. You got the guy that can just answer whatever he wants to at any particular time. So there was a bit of that mystery, like a social deduction game going on back then. So that's I guess it kind of felt familiar playing social deduction when they came around. So I guess this is why. So 1976, Whosit?
Yeah, I have not played it, but based on your description, I would. So
yeah, I kind of want to find one and be like, let's give this a shot because it's basically the same thing going on in half the games we have now that come out,
Yeah. So for my 1976, it's interesting because I had looked at the list a couple of years ago. I had just been looking at what sort of were my favorite games from each year. In 1976, I had a big hole, right? There just was nothing that I would consider a good game, a game I would recommend to anybody that I had played anyway. So I was like, well, I'm going to find one. I'm going to look at some of these games and find one that looks interesting and get it and play it. And I found this game called Kendo, which I think was only ever published in Germany, in German. But I got a copy with an English translation of the rules. And it is an abstract strategy game. You can play 2 to 4 players. It actually plays well at 3, I think, too. I've played it a lot that way. And you have one character it's got the 1 on it, and it's like the prince. And then you have maybe 3 of the 2 characters and then 4 of the 3 characters. So I think those are samurais and warriors. And what I mean by the 1, 2, and 3 character is those pieces, there's a map, and it's all just like interconnected dots. And those pieces can only move that number of spaces, 1, 2, or 3 spaces, but they have to move the full amount. And they can't move through something that's blocking them, but they can move on to something and capture it. And your prince, which is the number 1, I think it's the prince anyway, is key. If it ever gets captured, your pieces stay on the board, but you're out of the game. So your pieces are still there, sort of in the way. But if you can get your prince all the way to the middle of the board, you win. So if you can get your prince to the middle of the board, you can kill everybody else's princes, you win. So it's an abstract strategy game, perfect information, right? The state of the board, no hidden information. And it's just, and it's interesting too, though, because with multiple people out there, a lot of those abstract strategy games are just sort of one-on-one. But when you've got a third or even a 4th player, it's kind of like, well, I can go over here and do that, but you sort of need an alliance with the person who's over here, because otherwise they're going to sneak in your back door and mess with you. And, so it's got some interesting stuff going on like that. And, but yeah, I got a copy with the translation and played it, and it is worthy of my favorite game of 1976.
Interesting. Surprisingly, I am not German and have never heard of that before. So we'll have to play it sometime. It sounds interesting. Because to me, it kind of sounded like Stratego and chess kind of mashed together. But then you mentioned the multiplayer. I'm like, what?
Yeah. Now, the BGG top-rated game from 1976 is another war game, and another one that I had never heard of.
I'm shocked.
It is called Panzergruppe Guderian, which is the German campaign to take the city of Smolensk I guess that was World War II.
I sense a definite World War II theme coming through on the BGG.
Yeah, we might see more of that here in a minute. But yeah, this is just, war game map. I think it was hexes and, little cardboard counters and, 6 hours of wargaming. This is just tried and true, one of those formula. So I haven't played it, and I probably never will. But there you have it. 1976 says BGG.
Hail to the grognards.
Yeah, so. Nothing wrong with that. All right, are you ready to move on? Are we going to have a crossover in 1977?
It's probably highly probable here. Side note, where my sister was born. Happy birthday, Julie. But yes, for 1977, I'm sure Stephen is going to agree with me. The best game is by far Cosmic Encounter. Cosmic Encounter is fantastic. It's a game, quite frankly, that I hated. Absolutely hated the first 2 times I played it. And then I got it. And it's fantastic. It's hard to describe. It's just kind of like everybody's their own alien species, and they have vastly overpowered asymmetrical powers. And then when it's your turn, you draw a card to see who you're going to attack. And then you kind of point the galactic warfare arrow at them, and then you can invite whoever else you want to go on attack with you. And the defender, they can invite whoever else they want to go defend with them. And basically, it's just like the first person to get on, 5 other worlds, and that's the game. And there's a whole ton of negotiation in there. I mean, even in a fight, like it could be me against you, Steve, and I'm the attacker, you're the defender, and I invite 3 people with me, and you get 3 people on your side, and we have this huge, and then we look at each other and go, do you want to just diplomacy out of this? And then we do like the neutral thing, and that's it, no fight, we're good. So there's like all this like back and forth negotiation, screwing each other over, just trying to get to be the first person with to be on a number of other people's planets. It's fantastic.
Yeah,
I'm glad I played it more than twice.
And this is all about the asymmetric powers.
Oh yeah,
right.
That's what it's about.
Yeah,
right.
and this game is interesting because I played the original 1977 version. I played some 1980s version. I played the 2008 Fantasy Flight version, whatever that newer version came out. And I cannot remember if there are differences between them or if it's been improved or whatever. It is all a mishmash in my head. But I bet the 1977 version is just as fun as the latest version.
I'm sure it is, yeah.
If
I did a tiny bit of research on this, and basically they're all the same game. They just have different kinds of expansions, maybe tweaks on the powers and things like that. Although, to be fair, you're truer than I am, because I'm sure I never played the actual 77 version. But I've played the successive post-90s versions a bunch of times. It's fantastic. If you've never played this, so far, by far, this is the best game we've talked about, with maybe the exception of the honorable mentions. But out of the actual years, Cosmic Encounter is fantastic.
Yeah. All right. Since you did a shout out, I'm going to give a shout out right now to BGG user Neutral. So we had that Jack Vassal Memorial Fund auction that I support every year.
Yes.
And I said, if somebody, donated on this item, I would give them a shout out in one of my videos. And I know Neutral loves this game. So I'm giving a shout out right there. He's right here with us. Best game of 1977.
Thank you, Neutral.
However, BGG as a whole does not agree that Cosmic Encounter is the best game from 1977. How is that not even possible? Because of a World War II game. So
we're in 77.
Yeah, can you guess which one it is? Do you
Electronic Battleship?
No. It is Squad Leader, which was the predecessor to Advanced Squad Leader. So most people think of Advanced Squad Leader, which came out later, but Squad Leader was the original. And this is different from those other World War II games that I talked about, because those were about giant theaters. I mean, one was the entire European theater. The other one was
entire front
campaign to invade Russia. But this one is just you're a squad, right? Squad level combat. I have not played a lot of, I played some Avalon Hill games that were squad level, but I have not played a lot of squad level combat games. So I would not be surprised if, at least Advanced Squad Leader is the one that is the best out there.
Yeah, probably is. I've heard a lot of good things. I don't think I've ever actually played that particular game. I've heard a lot of good things, and I like the squad level combat. I play a lot of that kind of style on computer games, so I'm sure I'd like it as a board game.
Yeah. So sign me up. 1977 Squad Leader. I'll be there. All right. Moving on to 1978.
1978. Now I'm 4 years old. We're really getting into this board game stuff. All right. But I'm actually going to go back to being a kid, because my game for 1978 is Hungry Hungry Hippos.
No.
I played a ton of the Hungry Hungry Hippos. If you've never played Hungry Hungry Hippos, I feel sorry for you, because it's incredibly boisterous, fun, yelling and screaming. You basically have a little hippo and a giant pool of marbles, and you can rotate him this way, and then when you hit his back, he goes like this and grabs the marbles. And that's it. It's just that until all the marbles are gone. And whoever has the most marbles wins the game. That's going to be my game of this year, because I played it so much when I was a kid. I loved it.
I have a copy. I got it for my kids currently. And I'm not sure. It's probably been a little while, been a minute since they played it, but it's still sitting there in the closet, So, we're right. I like that game. Sure. I played it with my kids. I played it when I was a kid. Classic game.
It's a classic. Yeah.
My 1978 game could not be much more different from Hungry Hungry Hippos. So have you ever played Junta?
No.
Junta is...
No, but I know what it is.
Yeah, Junta is, most of the time, it's a card game, right? Yeah. So you have these cards in your hand, which could be different events that you could play to benefit you. You can have influence that you play down in front of you that gives you votes. Those sort of groups and parties, they support you. And you can have vote cards that you use during a vote, but those are one-time use and then they go away. And the interesting thing is, so I always want to play this at the highest player count, which I think is 7, because you have the Navy, the Air Force, the 3 armies, the president, and is it the prime minister or what the other guy is called? And so you will draw the budget for this, dictatorship with the president. You'll draw the budget for this small country, and it'll be something like 8 bills that you draw, but those bills will be between values of 1 and 3, I think it is, and you and nobody knows what you got, right? So you could have drawn a ton of money or just a little bit of money, and then you hand out the budget to the other players in secret, right? And those players look at it and decide, well, you suck, Mr. President. We're going to do something to overthrow you or vote for a different president. You're not giving me enough of the budget, right? I need more of the budget. And you can't make everybody happy, right? So one of the roles, the one that was called the prime minister, I can't remember, or is it the head of the special forces or secret police or something? It's probably the head of the secret police.
I'm going to say yes.
He doesn't have a lot of the sort of troops to help you if there's a coup, but he gets to do a free assassination every turn, right? So if you're not paying him, guess who's going to be the target of his assassination? So you have to pick a location to hide every turn because somebody's going to try to kill you, because just collecting money doesn't do it for you. You have to get to the bank and deposit your money in the Swiss bank account to make it safe. So people are trying to kill you. And all of that is a card game, basically. But when there is a coup to overthrow the president, you fight that out like a war game on the map. And so the 3 generals have 3 different armies. In the Air Force, they have, I think, paratroopers and the bombers they can do. And then the Navy has like the gunboat that can shell you. And, so everybody's got their own individual thing going on. And so, it's sort of a struggle if you're the president to say, well, maybe I'm only just going to pay the Air Force guy and the secret police guy because I've got this card that lets me bribe army units away when a coup starts, or something like that. You've always got some scheme that you're just trying to be president longer so you can take money and get to the bank and stash it in your Swiss bank account, because at the end of the game, whoever stashed the most money in the Swiss bank account wins. So this game,
it's like life.
Yeah, well, obviously, yeah. He who dies with the most toys wins. So yeah, I mean, I this game is ridiculous and it's long, but I do like playing it, and that is 1978 Junta, and I have to say, BGG agrees with me. That is the highest rated game on BGG from 1978.
Hey, a crossover
Junta,
with the
crossover.
Geek. Nice job.
Now I'm excited here because 1979 might be a 3-way crossover.
Ooh.
Depending on what you have done.
I'm probably going to let you down.
Oh, okay. I'm prepared to be disappointed, but I guess I'll start with this one since I've already sort of given it away that BGG and I agree that 1979's Dune is the best game.
That's what I figured you were talking about. But
that's because that's what everybody should be talking about, including you.
Yeah, I hear you. I've played Dune. It's a good game. Go ahead with your presentation.
I mean, it is a great game. You're doing like this area control thing. You've got asymmetric powers. There's a lot of sort of negotiation, because if you can form an alliance, you could sort of quickly win the game by getting together with somebody else who is powerful. You don't want to necessarily do it early, but these alliances sort of weirdly form as time goes on, and combat in the game is interesting because you have that, whatever combat wheel where you determine how many forces you're going to commit to battle. And then you have the leader that you commit. And, if you go out guns blazing early to sort of dominate, you can lose a lot of troops, and then you're screwed for several turns, which can be hard depending on which faction you are. There'll be a spice blow on the board and everybody will be rushing to get it because you need the spice. And then while everybody's doing that, the Fremen will be like, hey, you forgot about me. I'm just going to take my 3 objectives that I need to win the game. And I have seen that happen, by the way, twice. One time I myself did it. I won on like the 3rd turn or something ridiculous because everybody else just went rushing for a spice blow or something. And I just took some control points that I needed to win the game. And then I saw that happen in another game where I was participating and the Fremen did it, where we were all sort of,
you're like, that's my trick.
Everybody is focused on this is how you win the game. And you sort of forget the Fremen have this other objective, and then they just go do it while everybody else is squabbling among themselves. And then you're like, how did we all let that happen? But other than the Fremen getting those individual victories, I've never seen somebody win this game on their own. it has always been a combination of people getting together, two people getting together, making an alliance to win the game. So if you're not playing the Fremen, you probably need need an alliance.
I've played Dune. That's a really good game. I agree. I get that and Rex mixed up in my head because I haven't played either of them in quite a while. But the thing I really liked about it is the more people in your alliance, the more you have to get to win the game. That's a really cool mechanic because like by yourself, you only need like 3 things or whatever. But now you add another guy, now you need 4. And add someone else, now you need 5 of them. So it makes it a whole lot harder as an alliance to win, but also you have an alliance and you get to do things together. I agree. That's a really good game. I wanted to put it on here just because probably it's better than my game, but my game is Stop Thief. I love Stop Thief. I just kind of like the try to figure out what's going on. And well, I got a surprise for you. I have the thing still in my collection. And guess what? It works.
Nice.
I'm hoping you all can hear this. This is awesome. I love it. I'm going to do the arrest one time just for fun.
That is
Stop
great.
Thief. I love it. Like I said, still in my collection. Real briefly, it's a game in which everybody's a detective, and there's basically a thief walking around committing crimes, and you're trying to catch him. And instead of one of the people being the thief is actually controlled by the little computer unit. So, and it just tells you sounds. Like when you hear glass breaking, that means he broke glass. Then he might take 2 steps. Then he might open a door. So you're trying to look at the board and you don't know where he is. So you got to use these contextual clues to try to figure out the path that the person took to find them. Very much like probably some other games we'll eventually talk about. But this was very much the first one that I played. And at that time, the little electronic device, fantastic. This is like, we'll probably get there to a Dark Tower mention at some point. But like this was huge at the time. This little electronic device that ran the game and you could play along. And I was enthralled by this game, enthralled by it. I love Stop Thief. So I'm sorry. Like I said, I'm sure Dune is probably a better game, but I can't help it. Stop Thief.
Have you played the new one?
Actually, I have. Yeah. I thought it was done really well. I'm kind of a fan of restoration games anyway. If you've seen some of our other stuff, you know, I've talked very highly of them. It didn't go over well with Tiffany and Jacoby. I think probably there's a whole lot of nostalgia in it for me. So I thought it was great. Them, not so much. So that it kind of disappointed me. The game itself did not disappoint me. The experience did, because I walked into that thinking, this is one of my favorite games ever. These guys are going to love this. And it didn't really. So I was kind of like, oh, that's sad, you know, because it's just one of those things. You know how it is. When you have something
that happens.
You want people to love it too. You share that whole experience and everything. But I think the Restoration Games version is great. The original version is great. It's just a really good game. And I like that kind of, like I said, figure out kind of deduction, what's going on, and track something down on the board. So Stop Thief. That's mine.
Yeah, I mean, that is a good pick. I personally am not a big fan of the game, but I mean, it is a solid game, right? I mean, I could see that. And I like that sort of hidden information. I like the integration of the electronic device. I mean, yeah, that's a good pick. It just unfortunately happened in the same year as Dune.
I know.
I particularly as we get further down on the list, and maybe even in the next list, I may have to do an honorable mention or something, because there are just some years that are just fantastic.
Yeah, when we get to the next list, there's a couple of years on the next set that are unbelievable. Like they're like almost like modern years as far as like the number of games that I played and enjoyed and had an impact on the hobby, really. So yeah, we're really going to get into the meat of it. I feel like this was just kind of like board gaming in its infancy, really. I mean, obviously, like the war games were a big thing back then and all, but I feel like, modern board gaming really had its birth in this 75 to 79 period. You see a lot of the things that blossomed into many other things that I'm sure we're going to talk about later on versions.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, we covered from the Big Bang to 1979 in this list. So
yes, we did.
That was an impressive gaming through time.
I'll say, yes. Next time, we're going to play all those games simultaneously. So.
Oh, nice.
If you know us at all, don't listen to me, because we're not going to have live bears either. Sorry. Next time, live bears.
All right. All right. Well, next time we're going to do 1980 through 1984. So get your guesses ready, get your own list ready, and follow along with us. But until then, why don't you go play some older games?
Yeah, they're fun.
Go check them out. There are some hidden gems in there. I promise you will find some stuff that you love.
And you can find them at a thrift shop for $5.
Or less.
Or less, right? Awesome.
All right, everybody. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for coming.
I'm Steven, and that's Erock. If you did, please leave a comment or hit the like button. It really does help us out. If you have suggestions for future videos, let us know in the comments as well, and then subscribe to see what we come up with next.